This is Radio Free Hillsdale, 101.7 FM. I'm Scot Bertram, and with me today is State Senator Mike Shirkey, representing the 16th State Senate District, Branch, Hillsdale, and Jackson counties, and also the Senate Majority Leader. Senator, thanks for joining us.
You're welcome, Scott. It's always good to be with you, and especially in this time of season. We've got a small little thing starting. Well, it's been going on for a number of weeks now, and kind of peaks tomorrow, and then Lord only knows when we'll actually have the results, right?
Yes. We are recording this, we should tell people, the day before Election Day. Certainly, we don't know the results. But let me pose this question to you, because we've heard a lot about different court rulings as to when which ballots will be counted and when they arrive, and postmarks and all these questions, and it's different for different states, certainly. Tell people clearly perhaps as you can, how these ballots will be counted in Michigan.
Well, the only ballots that will be counted in Michigan are those cast by midnight, or not, by 8 o'clock tomorrow night, or absentees received by same time. So Michigan's courts have overruled the lower courts, finding that we should count absentee ballots for 2 weeks, as long as they were postmarked before the election day. And that's just, we challenged that in court, and it was overturned. So the ballots that will be counted will be those cast at the ballot box by 8 o'clock tomorrow night, or absentees received by same time.
And judging by our experience here in the state with the primary earlier this year, and what we sort of think will happen with the absentee ballots heading into Election Day, what's your sense as to how the offices around the county offices around the state are going to be handling those absentee ballots and counting them and getting them in a relatively quick manner? Are you confident that will occur?
I am. There'll be a couple of problematic areas where they have been buried with absentee ballots, but the clerks have been authorized to start pre-processing today. And what that means is not counting, but just arranging so that they can efficiently feed them through machines. And if you think about it, if there's been an overwhelming number of people voting absentee, then that should create substantial idle time or gap time tomorrow at the actual polls. And so as they process these and put them into categories or put them into groups, they find that there's not a long line or any line at all for physical voting, and they can process as many as they can during that period of time. So the clerks that I've talked to, and by the way, I've spent a number of meetings with clerks, both Democratic, Republican, and I'm convinced beyond a doubt that their number one goal is to secure a high integrity election. And so there's a lot of concern about just the opposite, and I don't have that in Michigan. There may be a couple of road clerks in certain places, but I think for the most part, these clerks are very, very focused on an accurate and high integrity election. And we'll see now if we gave them enough time in preparation for even the next election a couple of years from now. But the legislature was committed to giving incremental changes in the voting patterns and the clerk's latitude, because we didn't want to make too many quick changes without being able to test them.
State Senator Mike Shirkey with us here on Radio Free Hillsdale, 101.7 FM. You guys haven't been in session for a little while, but something that has happened recently, of course, is the court ruling on the governor's executive orders. And you and the House Speaker have been very clear that you're open for discussions to talk with the governor about doing this in a manner that would be taken through the legislature and done without any questions. How have how has that outreach been received? Have you been able to discuss these matters with the governor any more so than previously?
I'm sorry to report that there's been really no change in the communication between the legislature, between the Speaker and myself and the governor. our staffs are working well together, and there is some give and take and some back and forth. But for instance, this most recent ruling from the Department of Health and Human Services on contact tracing and giving names and addresses when you go to a restaurant, I didn't, and we didn't know about that any sooner than you did. So that kind of puts it in perspective.
And these new orders, largely, I should say, at least some are coming from Health and Human Services. Yep. One most recently involves a reduction on restaurant capacity, and then the order that restaurants begin taking the information, the names, contact information for everyone who comes to the restaurant, in case there is some, I guess, contact tracing that needs to be done. Some pretty serious consequences if restaurants are found not to be following this order.
Yeah, and this is a great example of where a little bit of partnership with the legislature and asking a few questions and for clarity purposes in what we're trying to accomplish, and then brainstorming some alternatives to accomplish that goal would have been very helpful. The way the ruling, the order has been written, there's a lot of ambiguity. Restaurants are still scratching their head wondering what do they really have to do, how long do they have to keep records, et cetera, and so forth. And there was a couple of ways to have accomplished the objective, I believe, which was the objective is probably reasonable, but the way it was executed compromised substantially the ability for it to be enforced, and it left restaurants, with their hands up in the air saying, well, how do we do this? Mm-hmm. So that's a great example of when you try to skirt the legislative process and you don't get representative input on things of this nature, you end up with confusion. And unfortunately, this is just another example.
We should note, Senator Mike Shirkey, that as we look at the raw numbers, the data that has come in that's available to you and I and the public, we do see, of course, an increase in infections across the state. We do see an increase in hospitalizations. We do see an increase in the positive rate across the state. So there is some reason to, I guess, be concerned and keep a watchful eye on those number of infections and hospitalizations that is happening across the state.
There's no question. We've had a dramatic increase in the number of cases. We've had increases in tests also, and our positivity rate, which is the percentage of those being tested that are showing positive, has crept up to a level in which it's difficult to understand how we're going to actually arrest the spread. At the same time, although the infection rate is going up, and this is typical for viruses historically, their contagiousness increases, but their virulence decreases. And though we have increased our number of people hospitalized, the outcomes are dramatically better than they were in March and April and May. The length of stays are shorter. The severity for most people, not all, is less. And so it's a balancing act. But I strongly recommend that people do their very, very best to follow the protocols for any organization or business that they go into, their policies. Just follow them. Be situationally aware. If you've been around people that you suspect may have been exposed, be careful about getting around your moms and your dads and your grandmas and your grandpas. Practice terrific hygiene consistently. Social distance when it makes sense. And if you have to be in close contact with somebody, for heaven's sakes, wear a mask. Not a mandate. It's just a sensible thing while we're watching how this virus progresses.
And Senator, on the topic too, what have you heard from districts, from parents across the state, especially in your district, of course, about how schools are handling this? I know here in Hillsdale, we had one of our local schools closed for 2 weeks because of a couple of infections in the school. That school has since reopened. Others have remained open for in-person learning with virtual options for students. By and large, though, at least in our area, and you perhaps can talk to a larger portion, it seems that in-person schooling is the norm.
Well, the norm in terms of it being offered throughout the 16th Senate District, there is still a significant number of students who are, choosing with their parents to take virtual classes. But virtually, I think in the 16th District, every school offers the option to be in class, along with the option for virtual. I really, really think that we need to do everything we can to keep kids in the seats, protect teachers. I'm going to be a strong advocate of when a vaccine actually does become available, that the top three categories are vulnerables, healthcare workers, and teachers.
Mm-hmm.
And get those people, those that want to be, get them the access to the vaccine as soon as possible. Because as try as they might, schools are doing their best, but it's just not normal, and it's not as effective as our routine. And I'm not criticizing. I'm just saying we need to do everything we can to get back to what was more routine, because it's not near as effective as what we got going on right now.
State Senator Mike Shirkey. Find him online, senatormikeshirkey.com. Find him on Facebook as well. Search for Senator Mike Shirkey, representing the 16th District, Branch, Hillsdale, and Jackson counties, and also Senate Majority Leader as well. Senator, thank you so much for joining us.
Let's keep our fingers crossed that it's a very sound outcome, so there's not necessary to challenge it, and that we can get on with life and get on to the next chapter in recovering from this virus and bringing the economy back. Thank you, Scott. Have a great day.